Up, up, and away. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with me, Stephen. And this is episode number 446 for March the 2nd, 2026. And can you believe we're in March? And I'm saying that because some of you will know why I'm saying it that way. Because, if you watch Jimmy Kimmel, at the beginning of every month, he has all these clips from all the news reporters going, can you believe it's whatever date? Every time the month changes. So can you believe it's March the 2nd already? But really, where has the time gone, right? Time flies when you're having fun. So I hope you've been having fun. I hope if it's been cold in your area and snowy, I hope you're staying warm. New York got one heck of a dump. That makes anything that we've gotten here this winter look mild. I know out in the East Coast, especially in Newfoundland, they've had a big dump as well. So yeah, everybody's getting dumped on these days, it seems. And that's just the weather, not to mention politics. And we're not going to mention politics right now. Anyways, little frog in my throat. It's early. It's 6:45. So we'll have some coffee. And here's a sneak peek at what I've been working on. I'll talk a little bit more about this project tomorrow on Idiot Quilter. But you have seen it before. It's the panel that many of you inquired about, and again, we'll talk about that more tomorrow, but here's how far I've gotten with this. This is my testing of my pattern that I did with the Quilt of Valor. This one is not a Quilt of Valor, but I just wanted to show that you can use any quilt and any color combinations of fabrics that you like to make this pattern that I have designed. Now, it doesn't look like much at the moment because I'm making the blocks. And there are 4 major blocks in this quilt, and I have 2 of them, the blocks all made. Of course, this is not the arrangement, and I've got others to make, and that's this week's project as well. So yeah, it's coming along. Okay, so that's all I really have to show you in terms of quilting and sewing. So let's move back to me. Let's have some more coffee. Do you like flavored coffee? This is not flavored. For me, flavored coffee never tastes like it's anything different from regular coffee. I've been told that the way you get the flavor is you have to add milk to your coffee. I don't. I take my coffee black. Yep. Once you've had black, you never go back. I like my coffee like I like my men. Any other jokes I can say related to having your coffee black? I guess not. But anyways, I hope you're enjoying a beverage of some sort. If it's coffee, if it's tea, if it's a big glass of milk. Yuck. I don't mind milk, but my milk has to be chocolate. I love chocolate milk. Yep. Walter complains all the time because every time we go to Costco, because Costco's got the best brand of chocolate milk. It's seal test. I don't think you can get that anywhere else but in Canada. But it's just creamier and richer tasting than the stuff that you get from the other places, at least in my opinion. And I do consider myself a fine connoisseur of chocolate milk. I love it. So I always buy big, large, I think they're 2-liter cartons of it every time we go to Costco. And we go to Costco every week. Okay, enough about my chocolate milk addiction. Let's look at comments from last week's episode. Just a couple that stood out. This one comes from Judy, and she said, it was hard for me at first when I retired to not put myself on a timetable of doing things. It's been 10 years since I retired, and finally I've said it's my time and I don't work with due dates. It's great now, but it's hard at first. Yeah. And you want to know something? I have been retired for 13 years, going on almost 14. Come the end of June, it'll have been 14 years ago that I retired, 2012. Yeah, again, how time flies when you're having fun. And that just seems like a lifetime away. But I still have self-imposed deadlines that get my goat. And I have to stand back at times when I start to feel a little overwhelmed and say, wait, you only have yourself to blame. You are the one that put the due dates on yourself. Nobody else did. So, yeah. And it's nice to hear that Judy, not that she went through it, but that, she can relate to it and tells me her story about it as well, because, I guess it's not unique to me. Okay, and then there's one from Mary Jane, and she writes, I very much enjoyed the changes you've made to your format. You really are good at explaining your process. The teacher in you shows through. Thank you for the time and effort you put into your channel. Well, thank you, Mary Jane. That makes it all worthwhile, and I mean that. I hope that didn't come out sounding sarcastic, because I didn't mean it to be sarcastic. I know, how can you tell? I'm usually sarcastic. Yeah, that's just me. Yeah, but no, I genuinely appreciate that nice comment there, and that you like how I explain processes. Yes, I learned all of those tricks from having been a teacher, because you've got to break things down for kids. Things that seem so complicated, as long as you can break it down to finer steps. What's the expression? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Well, yeah, that's the same with any complicated thing you get yourself involved in. To explain it to somebody else, break it down into its smallest units of thought. Because humans, we're not very good with long lists of things. We get confused very easily. We may think we're really smart, but we're not that smart. We're not. Lots of evidence of that in the world, isn't there, right now? Again, I allude to the political situation and what's going on. Okay, so keep those comments coming in. I have made a point of I check my comments every day on all of my videos, like the ones from the week. And I will make a comment back. And, sometimes it's just a heart, because you've said something really nice, and I appreciate it. I really do appreciate the nice comments, because as a content creator, you would not believe how many nasty comments. We talked a teensy bit about this yesterday, Stephen and Walter Live, that we get. It's like it's fair game to pick on us as content creators. And, okay, we put ourselves out there, so, we have to expect there's always going to be a few nutballs. So, yeah. But anyways, it's nice. Thank you, Mary Jane. That was a very nice comment. So please, carry on with your comments and things. If you have questions, please ask them. I will try to answer your questions. And if you have suggestions for what you would like to see here on this channel or any of my other channels, I would be happy to hear what those are. And if there's something I can do about them, I will definitely try. Okay, so what's been happening around here and elsewhere? Well, we got into a comfort food kind of thing. Might be a little late in the winter for that, because, when winter's cold, you want food you grew up with as a kid that was nice and warm, and, keeps you warm on the inside and keeps you warm on the outside too. So Walter made lasagna. Now, I love lasagna. It's one of my favorite food groups. My ideal dinner: start with a Caesar salad, some crusty bread, some crusty garlic bread, actually, and not overly crusty, okay, not hard as a rock. I kind of like garlic bread that's got a bit of a crunch to it, but also has, lots of garlic butter on it. Yeah, I know, it's not good for my arteries. Too bad. And then we have a nice Caesar salad, homemade Caesar salad, and then lasagna, and then pie for dessert. Now, that is what I consider a really good meal, and alongside it all, accompanying it, a nice glass of red wine, or maybe 2 or 3, or a bottle, whatever. Yeah. So Walter made 4 pans of lasagna. Now, they're not huge pans that he made, but they're enough for the 2 of us. So we can usually get out of one of his pans of lasagna 2 meals. So we had some last night. We had some the day he made it, which was, did he make it on Thursday? I think he made it on Thursday. And then we didn't have any on the Friday or Saturday, and we finished it off on Sunday. And lasagna, anything that's got tomato sauce in that and spices is always better, a day or 2 afterwards. It seems to get more flavor happening in it. And then I decided I'd make some chili, because we haven't had chili in a while. So I made a big crock pot up on, I think I started it on Friday morning in the crock pot when I first got up. And I got about 3 or 4 good-sized Tupperware containers, or those plastic things, that you buy at the dollar store with the lids and everything. And we freeze it. And so we have chili for a while. Usually one of those containers does us for one meal. Sometimes 1.5 meals, whatever. We did try a little bit. I didn't have quite enough to fill one of those containers. So what I had, I made nachos on Friday night with it, or Saturday night. Friday night or Saturday night? I think it was Friday night that I did that. And yeah, and it turned out well. And Walter likes my chili. And at first when he said that, I figured he was being sarcastic. But no, he said he actually does like it. So, one for me. Yep, put a mark on the wall. So yeah, we were busy cooking that. And then, of course, we had to have some Japanese cheesecake. We eat funny on weekends, all right? Friday night, we notch on like little appetizers. I make some celery and carrot sticks, healthy stuff. And then we have some crackers, and sometimes I make homemade cheese dip to go along with it. And we have little cubes of cheese, and we have some pickles cut up and some olives, and basically anything I can scrape off the inside of the fridge. Yeah, I know, sounds appetizer. Oh, and of course, for those that you wonder, yes, spray cheese. I'm almost out of my supply of spray cheese. Oh, boohoo. I had quite a bit of it, but we can't buy it here in Canada. So, yeah. But anyways, and I know there'll be lots of you out there going, ooh, spray cheese. Ooh, that's just chemicals in a can. Yes, it is. I was raised on chemicals. I love chemicals. Yep. But anyways, we've on this kick on Japanese cheesecake. And someone's going to ask, what is Japanese cheesecake? Is it cheese and cake with Japanese in it? No, it's cheesecake, but it's different from what you may consider like New York style cheesecake. It's a little lighter. It's very creamy. It's delicious. I don't know if they make it in Japan. We'll find out when we go there in May, but I have a feeling it's more a North American kind of thing. You know how a lot of foods that like Chinese food is Americanized, Japanese food is probably Americanized. And when I say American, I mean North Americanized, that kind of thing. Probably this too. But not all Japanese cheesecakes, just because they're labeled that, are necessarily good Japanese cheesecake. For example, Walter decided to pick up a frozen one from the local grocery store. Bad. Very bad. Was more like a regular crumbly cake. It wasn't like what they do, wave the cheese over top of it or whatever, because it wasn't very good. So the next day we went to the Village Bake Shop, which is a place in the town next door to us. It's a Dutch bakery, and they have it there, and it's delicious. So we bought a couple of pieces of that. They're fairly good sized pieces, so basically we cut them in half. And one slice of the Japanese cheesecake does the two of us. So we bought 2 of those slices. We finished it off last night. And as I was saying, Saturday night we might have, just, we don't make sit down dinner usually on a Saturday night. Sometimes we do, but this week I think we had some bitterballs, which is a Dutch thing. If you know what a croquette is, that's a Dutch thing. It's basically a log of meat that's been rolled in breadcrumbs and egg white or egg yolk or something like that, and then fried up. Well, we buy those at the Dutch store as well. Walter has made them in the past, but they're easy to buy them at the Dutch store because they do take a bit of work to make. So we had some of those, and we had a little Japanese cheesecake as well. Plus the never-ending appetizers, as I call them, what I just explained to you, because I usually make enough and it lasts us through the weekend. Yeah, we're just nibblers when it comes to the weekend. And so last night, though, we finished off the lasagna with some leftover salad, and that was good. So, yeah. What else has been happening this week besides food? We were supposed to go to a sew day with Walter's sewing bunch. But it got canceled because the guy who runs it, Brendan, you've heard us talk about Brendan before. That's the guy that taught Walter how to sew shirts to make garments and that. Um, he had this planned for Saturday, but 2 weeks ago, or now 3 weeks ago, he went to, guess where? Puerto Vallarta. So the day that he was supposed to fly back home, which would have been a week from this Sunday past, that's when all the stuff happened with the cartel in Puerto Vallarta. So he couldn't get a flight back home. They canceled everything. The earliest flight you get was on Saturday of this weekend, so a week. A week more in Puerto Vallarta. Ooh. Now, we haven't heard from him to find out how things went. We heard when it first started up, and he said they were fine. And of course, they didn't have any problem with accommodation because since all the flights were canceled, the incoming people that would have replaced those that were leaving for home couldn't get there anyway. So their hotel room was still there for them. And there was food and everything. So, yeah. So a 2-week vacation became a 3-week vacation. But, you know, we'll find out when we see him next how that all worked out with the cartel. Yeah, so we did not have the sew day. But there'll be one next month. So, yeah. And speaking of next month too, well, this month actually. Yeah, we're into this month now. Pop-up sew day for me, for us, for you. March the 21st. Saturday, March the 21st. That's going to be the next pop-up sew day right now, as far as I know. And I don't see that changing. But anyways, stay tuned. A few days before the 21st, that week before, I will make the official announcement, and I'll have the link in the show notes for everything I put up that week for you. Okay, so have I bought anything new? Well, you know, I'm working on this dollhouse. More about that in a minute. But I needed some paints for it. I decided, yeah, it wasn't enough just to 3D print the stuff that I was going to put in it, or my plan was to put in it. So I got a big box of acrylic paints, craft paints, 50 colors in it for like $40 from Amazon. They don't stick very well to the filament plastic I'm using. Excuse me. I need some coffee. Yeah, they don't stick very well at all. And to be honest, I'm not a great fan of painting things, especially small things. So, anyways, I got them. They'll come in handy in the future. I used to have a lot of paint and stuff. When I used to do art journaling and scrapbooking and all that, I had all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, it dried up over the years when I stopped doing that. And some of it I gave away that had never been opened up and that kind of thing. So yeah, when you know, now I needed it. And now this will sit on a shelf and dry up. And I'll explain why that's possibility of happening in a moment. But anyways, that's the newest thing I bought. I haven't bought anything else. I've been a good boy, although I am waiting for the Bamboo Labs people to make available another AMS for my largest of my 3 bamboo printers. They said it would be available in March. Well, we're in March now, and I'm on their emailing list to be notified when this comes in. So we'll see. Maybe this week or whatever. I intend to buy another one. And that would mean that all of my 3D printers, all 3 of them, each will have 2 AMS. That's the automatic material supply system. Changes colors. And I really want one for my large machine, my H2S. Which brings me to another problem as to where I'm going to put it. And it means I'm going to have to take one of my old Creality printers. I have 2 of them just off to the side of me over here, which you can't see, just out of sight. I'll have to move one of those out of the spot. But I was thinking last night, I seriously have to consider what I'm doing with, I have 4 of those Creality KEs. They work fine. They'd be great for somebody just getting into 3D printing because, you know, you don't have to go through the hell I had to go through years ago when I first bought my first ones. They've gotten so much more sophisticated. But to be honest, I don't use them because I like my bamboos so much better, especially with the AMSs on them. So I'm thinking about seeing if I can donate them maybe to, there's a branch of our library, and I know they've got a 3D printer in there. I wonder if they'd like some more. There's the elementary school not far from me, but they're the ones you've heard me say if you've been on here any length of time. Um, I've tried to donate art supplies and things to them before, and they don't even contact me back, even after I've sent them about 3 emails. So I don't know if they're really worthy of something like this. So we'll see. I got to think about it. I mean, I could sell them, try to sell them, but in a sense, they are not the latest technology. I mean, they work fine. They'd be great for somebody who wants to just start in on 3D printing. I could put an ad into something like Kijiji. That's something we have here that, it's just a community marketplace kind of a thing. I don't know. I've got to think about it. I think I'll talk it over with Walter as well. But really, why am I hanging on to these? Because I do not use them. But, it's kind of impressive. If anybody sees it, I go, I have a print farm. But I need the space. I really do. Anyways, first world problems. Yeah. So, let me see. Where does that leave me off here? Checking my notes. Yes, I have notes. Yeah, okay. So, highlights then from the videos in the past week, if you haven't seen them yet. So, last Monday Morning Coffee with Stephen was live. I did it live. People had asked if I would do that. So, I said I'd give it a shot. And I think it turned out pretty good. I had some nice comments about it. People who saw it live. It was pretty early. I did it at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, not so bad here in my time zone. But if you're out west, it's like 5 in the morning there. However, there's always the rebroadcast that you can pick it up later. It's just, it's just not going to be live. But I think I am going to do it again. And what I'm thinking of is the last Monday of every month, I will do Monday Morning Coffee with Stephen as a live. So that would mean the next one will be whatever the last Monday of March is. That's when the next live version of this will hit the airwaves. On the Idiot Quilter, I had a process video where I showed you how to make your own fabric using your embroidery machine if you have one. And, the pros and cons of doing that and what you can do with it. So if you didn't see that, that's primarily what the Idiot Quilter was all about last week. And on So Chatty, we went back. Walter revisited Lucey again. And on the first video we had done a week before that, basically I showed Walter how to load a quilt onto Lucey. And now he's trying his hand at free motion quilting. And he's doing really well with that. He when I go to bed at night, he comes down here, creeps downstairs, gets Lucey all up and about, and away he goes. And I made a little video to show you Walter's progress in free motion quilting. So I'm going to stick that in here right now for you. Okay, so last night after I went to bed, Walter came down here and played with Lucey for a while. He sent me an email this morning and said he had a few little problems. One of the problems was he thought that this belly bar was tightened up too much, so he loosened it off a little bit, and it probably was. We retightened that the other day, and I think we did make it a little too tight. He forgot, though, to release it when he was advancing the quilt, and so he popped the quilt off the top bar. But I've inspected it. He put it back on, and it seemed to be okay now. Also, he had to replace the bobbin. He said he didn't have any problem with doing that. So that's all good. So he did something to the handles. He tightened them, I guess. They were too loose. So he tightened these up. So let's take a look at what he's been doing. And I'm assuming this is where he started, because that's what I saw the other day. And these are his new progressions. He decided to go simple and just do little circles within circles. And as we look at his progression along here, practice does make perfect, because although these are not perfect, and mine certainly wouldn't be perfect, so before someone starts to say, well, can you do any better? No, I can't. I cannot do any better. This one I like. This one I think has worked out pretty good. He is crossing his lines in some of them, but that's to be expected. There's two schools of thought about that too. Should you cross lines or not? I don't know. Depends on you, whether you like that look or not. These have sort of an artistic, sketchy look to them, I think. And remember, this is on a plain piece of cloth. If this was actually on a quilt with blocks, this would not be as noticeable. So I think for a first effort, this is pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to advance the quilt, and I'm going to rehook up the quilt path to it and find the pattern I did that creates a grid, and it'll all be set up for him when he wants to do this again. But so far, I think he's doing really well. And as long as he's still enjoying doing it, then, and he practices more, I think he could turn out to be a really great long armor. A heck of a lot better than me, and that's just fine. And I just realized there were a couple of pictures I forgot to show you, so I'm going to show those to you now. So one, this is my chili in its pot. Kind of looks like someone threw up, but, you know, it tastes good. Just get over the way. Well, chili looks like that, doesn't it? And let's see. There are the paints that I was mentioning before that I bought. Big box. All the colors of the rainbow. Yeah. Okay. So that takes me to coming events. So I've already mentioned the pop-up sew day on March the 21st. And of course, we always have Sewing with Stephen with Wednesdays. Link for that is in the show notes below. So if you've never come to one and you're free and you wish to, hey, come. We'll have a good time. Don't worry. People are very, very nice in the group. Very supportive. We love to have new people. So yeah, that's in the show notes. Okay, so what's happening for weather today before I go out for my walk later this morning? Okay, so there we go. Yeah, sun's coming up. Looks like it might be a sunny day coming. Might be a little overcast. We'll see. You can see we haven't had really any new snow. Things have been melting off. The driveway's clear, the sidewalk's clear, so should be a good day for walking. Might be a couple of patches are a little icy because as things were melting over the last couple of days, they have solidified again because currently it is minus 18 degrees C. So although it looks like it's going to be nice, it is frosty. And yeah, minus 18. Sunny all day though. Yep, all day sunny. And tomorrow's a little bit cloudy, but definitely warmer. The high today is going to be a -4, but tomorrow it's going to be 3. Like that's a plus, 3 plus. And then Wednesday, sunny and 5. Thursday, rain actually on Thursday. 60% chance of rain, 6 degrees high. Friday, 75% chance of rain, 5 degrees high. And Saturday, wow, 80% chance rain, but a high of 13. Oh my God, we're almost into bikini weather. Got to shed that winter weight so I can get in my bikini. Sunday 9, Monday 13. Yeah, it's everything is well double digits. Above 0. So really, by the looks of things, today might be our last really chilly day for about a week. We shall see. We shall see. I mean, it's March. And I guess we might consider that March is coming in like a lamb, which means it's going to go out like a lion. So yeah, it's still early here where I live. We could have a snowstorm sometime near the end of March, even into April. So yeah, so don't start, if you're in my area, don't start putting plans together for running around in your shorts and sandals. Just not yet. Okay, so that takes me to what's growing in the grow lights. This is another segment that you told me you like. I don't know why. It's like watching wallpaper dry, but watching my vegetables grow. But here they are. Okay, this lettuce is a little bit limp. It's still okay, but it's time to, eat what's left there, and clean up the dead stuff and repot some new stuff. And that's grow light 1. This is grow light 2. You can see this lettuce this is nice when it gets like this. This is very nice and crispy and green. So yeah, we got to eat that this week. And the basil's coming along nicely, but by God, I think we're starting to grow a basil tree here by the looks of that stalk. And then of course our tomatoes in the jungle. And peppers, way in the back, you can see some peppers. And yes, they are a darker color. They taste the same as the green peppers, but these ones are a dark, very deep purple. Don't ask me why. But we've got a new crop of tomatoes coming up. These perpetually grow. So, we have maybe a little bit of a dormant period for a couple of weeks, and then suddenly they've got flowers on them, and then where there's flowers, there's going to be fruit, because tomatoes are fruits. And yeah, but I thought what might be kind of interesting is I don't do much except take pictures and eat the stuff. Walter is the gardener. He looks after all of these grow lights. They were actually my idea, and way back a couple of years ago when we got the first grow light, but he kind of took it upon himself to do all this. He likes to garden. I'm not good at it. I kill everything. But anyways, I thought I'd do a little interview with my gardener, Walter, and just have him fill in a few things that maybe I haven't said about all of this and what his process is. So I'm going to insert that little interview in here right now for you. Okay, so we're going to have a special interview with my gardener. Meet him, Walter. It's Walter the gardener. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what Walter does with these plants. We bought this about, when we get it? Over a year ago?
Oh, more than that.
It's been a couple of years ago now. We've had grow lights. And I got this idea. I don't know why. But I thought, oh, it might be nice with the price of peppers and tomatoes and lettuce and stuff like that if we could grow them during the winter in the house. And Walter thought that was a good idea. So we started with this one. This was our first one. What we got in there, Walter?
Right now it's lettuce. It's getting a little ratty looking. I need to replace the lettuce. It's in here. But this is, I found that the one variety seems to grow the best, and it's called Early Great Lakes. And it's sort of, it's almost like a type of Boston lettuce type of thing, and it grows really well.
And do you add, like, how's this work? There's dirt.
There's dirt, and then in this unit there's a mat underneath that has that sucks up the water. Right now there's no water in the trough. Oh, there is water in the trough. You pour a lot of water into this trough.
Because you get stuck on a yellow thing.
Yeah, and the water soaks up. The only problem is it does tend to get a little wet here, and these plants seem to like wet. So, but it sucks up the water, and usually what I let it do is I let it dry out for a couple of days at the end of when it sucks up all the water, and let the plants dry out a little bit first before I add more water to it.
Now, do you add any kind of fertilizer to this, like Miracle Grow or anything?
No, what I usually do is every so often I change the soil in it with new soil, and I try not to feed it with fertilizer because it's lettuce. And as soon as you start fertilizing lettuce, it starts going to seed.
Oh, okay.
Now these ones already started going to seed. There's seeds there.
Oh, okay.
So I have to pull these apart because they're getting kind of ratty looking.
Yeah, they do go this way.
Yeah.
And then, so once you pull those all out, what will you do? Replant them?
Yeah, I'll replant them with new seeds. And I've got some sprouting in the other rooms. So.
We'll take a look at it in a minute. Well, let's go over here. That was grow light number 1. And this is grow light number 2. Now, what do we have in here? We have that lettuce.
We have lettuce and we have some basil here.
Now, that basil's gotten really stocky.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. But anyway.
It's growing like a weed, though.
So I may have to repot some of that as well. But these are actually what happened here with these lettuces are growing fairly healthily. But what I did was I chopped them all off and we used them for a salad, right? And you just chop them off down to the stem and then they all regrow again.
Oh, I'm learning something new every day. And so what are these yellow sticky things for?
Okay, now one problem we have with this is when the soil gets really wet, there's gnats that come out of the soil. And they're like little tiny black bugs and fly around. They almost look like fruit flies. But there's tons of them stuck to one of these right now. And these are sticky traps. You can buy them in the store, but actually I ordered these from Amazon. And I've put them in a couple of the plants and it catches these little bugs.
Now, back here at the back, there's a little yellow container. You can see that I 3D printed it because I read somewhere if you put some white wine in there, they would be attracted to it and drown, working kind of the same as that. Thing is, that's dried up right now.
Yeah, and it doesn't really work.
No, it's not really working
It
now.
really only works on fruit flies.
Yeah. Well, we stay away from it. But, and somebody else told me, I think it was Heidi, who said to put in a little bit of water, white wine, and some active yeast as well. And I did do that. I did it with the philodendrons upstairs, and it did get some up there.
Yeah, but for some reason, these gnats or whatever that come out, the gnats come out because of the soil gets a little wet, and they're kind of, what do you call it? They feed on rotting soil or whatever.
Oh.
So it.
How pleasant. We have rotting soil. Yeah.
So, they, actually they haven't been too bad this year.
No, they haven't been. I've noticed that this winter. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
one thing I do is I
you
try
do?
do.
You said do.
I like to grow indoor plants from the seed and never bring an outdoor plant inside.
Yes, we made that mistake
because if
last
you bring an outdoor plant inside, you may import some bugs that go along with it. We had a problem last year with we brought some peppers inside, and the peppers had a little not a lot, had what do you call it, mealybug, or I think they're called mealybugs, infested on it. And I didn't realize it right away, and before I know it, I had tons and tons of these bugs, and they were eating the peppers like crazy.
Yeah. So now these are all, of course, grow lights that are on here. What's the cycle for the grow lights? Because they're not on all day.
No, we have them on for about 16 hours?
I think 16 hours on and 8 hours off.
Right.
And they're on timers.
Yeah.
So they're rigged up and that they'll come on for 16 hours. They usually come on around about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll go off around 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then the next day, the cycles repeat it.
Yeah, the one thing I've think of with these particular ones is that they have only a certain spectrum of light in these particular ones. And the lettuce seems to do well with it, and so does the
basil.
But I think if you try and grow other things, don't always grow as well.
And we have tried some other things. They don't grow as well. Now these came from Amazon. They're not expensive. I think they were about $150 Canadian for them. So that's not bad. And that comes with the pots that you see there and everything.
The pots and the grow lights and the mat. And I thought I'd have to replace this mat, but so far I've never replaced the mat, and it seems to still be okay.
Okay, so let's go into the jungle, as I call it, because this is a different system. It's still grow lights, but it is, and you've seen pictures of it before, but you see these lights here are these great big LED
lights
plates.
And they're considered full spectrum. They have the full spectrum to the sun, right? So they give you a much more robust light for it. And we're growing tomatoes now, and the tomatoes are doing quite well. They're they're cherry tomatoes, and they're a dwarf tomato. So they produce tomatoes. The plant doesn't get all that big, right?
I'm getting it caught up here.
Yeah, the plant doesn't get all that big. So as you can see, we're getting some tomatoes on here.
Now, we stumbled upon this variety by accident because you came home with some tomato plants that were out on our deck in the summer.
Yeah, and they called them kitchen tomatoes. But I looked them up, and I think they're called actually red robin dwarf tomatoes or something like this. And so I wasn't sure what seeds they were. And I read somewhere that if they're a hybrid or something, they won't necessarily sprout the seeds properly, right? You'll either get one of the plant, like a hybrid is like two different varieties melded together. Well, if you try and use the seeds of that, you might get one or the other plant.
And when you say it's the seeds from, you mean the seeds from the actual tomatoes themselves that grow.
So what I've done is here's a nice little ripe tomato. There's a little ripe tomato that we've got here, and All you have to do with this is squeeze the seeds into soil from any tomato, and it will produce another tomato plant. And this one will. These are all these plants are from one of these little tomatoes I got from the plant in the summer. I have since dried some of these seeds as well, and but I've started some new ones from the seeds here. Down here, we have little tomato plants down here.
And by the way, these little cups they're in, I 3D printed for Walter.
Yeah. So these are little 3D plants. And we have two pepper plants going in the back here.
Way at the back.
Well, and
back
it's
here.
producing a couple of little green peppers.
You know, it's kind of hard to shoot with your head in the way, but...
See, we have some peppers coming on here. So
the peppers take a while.
Yeah.
And when they're outdoors too, they take about 80 days for you to get like outdoors full grown. But these are perpetual. We grow them all the time. Right now we're a little low on our harvest of peppers because we use them all up. So we're getting more. The tomatoes are in, I don't know how many harvests we've had with the tomatoes.
This is our second major harvest with the tomatoes. But what happened was they become pot bound. They were in smaller pots. They were in pots this size before. They were pots this size before. They are 5-inch pots. And I bought some 7-inch pots and I transplanted them. They all started getting ratty looking. So I transplanted them into 7-inch pots so there was more soil in them. And they rejuvenated again.
Yeah, and they're doing quite nicely. And we eat them all year round. They don't get huge. Now you can see the size of some of these green ones here. They're a fairly good size, but they're not as big as, you know, a full beefsteak tomato.
No, but these are cherry tomatoes.
Yeah. And
So
they're
like grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes.
they're great in a salad. They're great just eating them on their own or whatever. So that's the harvest we have back here. And you have these in the big vats.
So you split the tomato. It's very juicy and
delicious.
Nice and tasty.
And they're organic.
Organic because there's no pesticides used. And
now, do you put any Miracle
yeah,
Grow in those?
I do use this stuff here.
Yeah, Miracle Grow.
Yeah, and that's all I do.
And it's a miracle. And it grows. And so, so we got peppers, we got tomatoes. We don't have anything else in here. We did have some basil at one point.
Yeah.
I think that was the end of that one.
The dead basil plant.
The dead basil.
Yeah.
We don't use a lot of basil, but it grows really well. We need to use more of it with that. And what is the idea with these big gray vats then?
Okay, what happens, when we go away, right now I haven't been doing it, but if we go away for a week or something like that, I will pour a lot of water into these. And the plants, it oversaturates the plants, but it keeps them healthy while we're away.
So, you were asking what we do with grow lights? That's what we do. And when I say we, I mean Walter.
These on the deck when we have plants on the deck in the summertime. And if we go away for a little while, like a week or 10 days or something like that, I put a bunch of water into these. It oversaturates the plants, which isn't great for the plants, but it keeps them... green while we're away, and then when we get home we just dump it and I go back to regular watering. So
that's our grow lights. And people might wonder why there's tinfoil on the wall.
It's to reflect the light. You can buy these grow tents, right, that you can put stuff in, and they've got silver linings all the way around the grow tents, and it reflects the lights into the plants. Right, so I'll even notice that some of the plants do well right against the tinfoil.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's how our garden grow. Hope you enjoyed this. Okay, so this takes me to 3D printing. This is going to be a long video today. I just warn you, so you may want to get a second cup of coffee. Okay, the dollhouse. All right, let's talk about the dollhouse, shall we? There it is. 3D printed dollhouse. You can see I've got some kitchen stuff in there, that kind of stuff. I've got a floor in. I was starting to do some wainscoting, some wallpaper. I hate it. I've come to the conclusion that I am doing something that's not bringing me joy. I thought this would bring me joy. It's not. It's bringing me frustration. It's eating up all of my time in trying to figure out what I'm going to stick in this thing. And even the way this dollhouse is designed, I'm not really thrilled with that. So I'm scrapping it. Well, not completely. I have been thinking that I might, as you know how I love printing 3D gnomes, little gnomes that. I'm thinking as time goes by, I could populate this more as a display case of some miniature creatures that I might print out. Where I'll put it, I have no idea. But that's what I'm thinking right now. But I have abandoned the idea of making a dollhouse. It's just not for me. Thought it would be, but it's not. In the meantime, too, I have other things that I've made. This is my latest, the balloon, the hot air balloon. This is for my friend Mona. She's a hot air balloonist, and so she can appreciate this. It lights up. The lighting up in it doesn't show up that well in this picture, but it does light up. And it's one of those ones by the same guy who made the two little buildings that are on either side of it. The Christmas Mansion and Santa's Toy Shop. Those sit out in her family room all year round because they're just too stinking cute and took so long to make that I'm not burying them away and taking them out for only a few weeks at Christmas time. So they're there all year long, and they're on a timer, and everything comes on at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon and goes off at about 11 o'clock at night. So the hot air balloon is the latest, and it was a little tricky to put together because unlike his other creations, this is Fluvo. I'm not sure how you say his name. Fulv. These are purchased items, like purchased as in I purchased the model information for the slicer, which you'll understand a little bit better in a moment. And yeah, and I'm loving them. I love these things. I am making another one right now. I'm working on. He just came out with this one. And this is it. The trolley and the trolley station. I think it's just stinking cute. And I don't know if I will do this or not, but you can actually get they call it a Lego motor of some sort that he's designed this, that you can put the motor in it and you can print out the track as well, 3D print it, and you can set this up in a loop or whatever. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I have an idea in my head if I was where I would put it, but we'll see. But anyways, I just think it's great. I love all of his stuff. They're all so well explained, except the balloon. The balloon wasn't as well explained as all of his other projects I've done. And I think that's because I think he did the balloon early on in his production career for this. But I do have a quick little video I want to insert here now for you of the parts of the balloon, just for fun, being printed in the 3D printers, but it's at fast speed, and it's kind of mesmerizing to watch this kind of thing. So I'm going to insert that in here right now. Okay, so the other thing that I made, just to see if I could, was this. It's a purse. Totally 3D printed. You have to attach the handle with some wire. And actually, in one of the ones I saw, someone had designed a liner for this with fabric and a zipper. And I'm not sure how they attached it to the inside of this purse, but they did. It looked really cute. I'm not going to do that. Right now, it's just sitting on a shelf. I'm thinking of maybe populating it with maybe some cute little creatures peeking out over the edges of it or something like that, just for fun. But I just wanted to see if I could print it, and I did, and I used a sort of a rainbow filament for this. And yeah, again, I'm just playing with things. Okay, so what's that take me to? Oh, I showed you the trolley. Oh yeah. Okay, so 3D printing. I started the last time, not last week, but the week before. I had a little video that I created talking about 3D printing and getting into it and printers you can buy, focusing on the Bamboo line of printers as well and all that. So there is one other piece of software that you need to have when you first get into 3D printing, and it is called, let me put myself up here, it is called a slicer. And essentially a slicer is a program that takes the model you have downloaded and writes the code that is needed for the 3D printer to read so it can print your model out. If that seems like mud to you right now, I'm hoping this little video that I've created about that will explain it all to you. So here it is. Okay, so now you've done your homework. You have decided on a 3D printer you want. You have bought it. It's been delivered. You've got it all set up. Now what? Well, you need to have things to print. So where do you find these things? And we call these models. Well, you can see on the screen I have one very good resource. This is one that I use all the time now. I've used others. This is called Maker World. This is by Bamboo Labs, and they have a very extensive collection of free models that you can download to print on your printer. In fact, you're going to go down a rabbit's warren when you find these sites, because there are just literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of things that you could print. Now, MakerWorld, as I said, is associated with Bamboo Labs. It's actually their site, but you don't have to use their site. You can go to a site called Thingiverse. You can go to Thangs. You can go 3D Cults. All of these are various ones, and all you do is just do a search for 3D prints, and you're going to find a whole host. Many are free. Some of the more elaborate prints, for example, you might have to pay for. Like those ones I've shown you in the past that I have done that are the very elaborate houses and structures. But let's focus just on how you find what you might want to print and how you download it to your computer. What I have up on my screen right now is Maker World, the one that's by Bamboo Labs, as I already mentioned. And you can see when you first go to Maker World, which is really easy, makerworld.com, you have this screen and it shows you all kinds of categories of things. Now, it also has a tendency, like YouTube and the internet in general, to read what you have downloaded in the past and go to similar items. But you're not limited to those at all. But you can see there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things to download. They have it listed by, well, by categories. So let's say you want something for the kitchen, household products. So you have a whole list of different things here. Toys and games, etc. Now, if you want to do something specific, let's say I want to find a cat. I want a little statue of a cat. Well, you're going to get lots of things, but I can plug it in. And there you have all kinds of different room decors and things like that for cats. Let's say I was looking for a cute sculpture. This is fun. Cat love decor. So we just click on it. It brings up the information. It usually has several different pictures of it. You can go into the 3D view and turn it around. What's it going to look like on your plate? Oftentimes there is more information, like here, read me. The key to printing my figurines is having good adhesion to the build plate. So they give you some suggestions for coming out with a really good print. You can also see what other people have printed using that file. That's cute with the cat there. And they make comments about, how well it printed out for them or things they have done. This one some got into fancy printing, changed the colors and things like that. So lots of great ideas in here as well for the individual models that you might pick. When you decide that you want one, you just simply click on download. Now, if you have a Bamboo printer or a printer that supports what's called 3MF files, then that's what you'll find here. However, if you have a printer that doesn't support those in the slicer, we'll talk about slicers in a minute, but you have the standard STL file, well, usually they will have that as well, and you can download it. So you simply just click on the link, and now it may go do something like this. It says click and swap to line up 3 identical items in a row. This is just to make sure that you are a real human being. Click and swap. Okay. In a row. Oh, sorry. It wants it in a row. Okay, these really test my patience. Okay. I'm having trouble with this. Oh, wait, this one. Okay, I'm not sure how this is supposed to work. Let's try again. See if we get easier one. Click and swap to line up 3 identical items in a row. That's not in a row. Where are its sad eyes? I really don't know how this works. Anyways, okay. We need to confirm you're not a robot. Yeah, okay, well, I'm not sure how you do that on this one. So anyways, the idea here is you would click that, you download it to your computer, put it in a directory somewhere where you'll know you'll find it. Okay, so once you have your model, then you want to have a slicer. Now slicers, and I'm showing the one that I use, are really easy to get. They are free. The instructions in your 3D printer will tell you what site to go to get the slicer they recommend. You are not limited to using the slicer for the particular printer brand that you bought. I like Bamboo's slicer. I used to use one called Cura. That was the one I used with my Creality printers, but I find that Bamboo slicer is just easier to use and has many more features. This is a personal preference. So after you get into 3D printing, whatever you find works best for you, that's the slicer of your choice. Now, I'm using the word slicer. What does that mean? Slicer means it basically takes the model, we just download it, and when you upload it to the slicer, do some tweaking of it, maybe make some modifications. Then when you are finished with that, you want to put it in a format that your printer can read, the computer code. And because the way a printer works is it creates melted plastic in rows. It goes around and around and around and builds the image up. And so each one is called a layer, and that's why you have a slicer. Slicer takes that model and slices it into the layers that it needs, the printer needs, to build the finished product. So let's look at some of the features of this. When I first open it up, you have this build plate. This is a model of the build plate that's on your printer. So you're going to look at things the way the printer looks at them, or the way it would appear on the printer when it's printing. So you can move this around with just your mouse to get different angles and that kind of thing. I'm going to leave it like that. And up here you have some basic information. Because Bamboo makes several different printer types, you can pick from the various types, or what you own. Actually, you should pick the one you own, or it's not going to work, right? I happen to own a Bamboo X1 Carbon. I actually own 2. I also own a Bamboo Lab H2S, but I'm going to leave it at Bamboo X1 Carbon because that's the one I want to send the file to print. Other information here is kind of plate. It reads the plate you have. I use the standard textured plate. We're not going to worry about sync information because that's for if you have an AMS attached to your system. Nozzle diameter usually defaults to 0.4. You can change your nozzles out and then change that to whatever size. You can make a smaller nozzle or a bigger nozzle. We're not going to talk about nozzles. We're going to stick with all the standard stuff that's here for now. Same with the flow. It will identify what filament you're using. You probably will have to put this in manually unless you have an AMS. Now I have an AMS and that's what it's showing here for this particular one. But if I go down here to system presets, I can pick filaments from other companies. Now I use primarily Bamboo, But you can see I can pick from all those other ones that just came up in that side box. I can even set up a generic one. There are other filaments that I could add to this by clicking this button, and I just check next to various kinds of filaments that are possibly that I have in my collection. But as I said, right now we're just sticking to the bamboo filaments. Now here is where you get into the finer tuning. 9 times out of 10, if you have downloaded a file that is a 3MF file, all of this information will be built into it by the designer. You don't usually have to alter any of this kind of stuff, but you can. You can alter your layer heights. You can the line width, the seams, where they're positioned. There is a ton of things, and I'm really not going to get into these because, one, I don't use most of these. I just go with the defaults, and sometimes I will go in and change some things. Like, for example, I might want to make my print a little stronger, so I will change the number of walls, the wall loops, and the infill and things like that, just to make it stronger. I can play with speed. Usually I leave that just the way it is set. The default is fine. Speed kills. I can put in supports. A lot of times these projects will already come with this built into it, but if you want to change the type of support, you can. Mine is set to default at tree support. I like tree supports the best, but I sometimes change it over to slim tree supports because I find that those are easier to break away from the main project. Supports can be a pain in the butt. Sometimes you don't need supports at all, so you don't even need this clicked. Or, as I said, it'll be built into the model that you have selected. And then there's other features as well. Now, as far as I'm concerned, most of this stuff is on a need-to-know basis. And this is where the tinkering comes in. As you get more familiar with how your printer works, with the different models that are out there, you may want to go in and do something with these changes, or make these changes for yourself. And again, there is tons of information about all of these things on the internet, in YouTube, on the site. In this case, Maker World, the Bamboo site will give you lots of information about using the slicer and how to change things. You can even go in and change the color if you have an AMS. If you don't like what defaults, or you don't have those colors, you can go in and synchronize the slicer to the actual printer itself. For example, up here under Project Filaments, I can go to this. It says successfully synced with other colors. So here we go. These are all the colors I happen to have loaded in the Bamboo X1C Carbon printer that I would be using for this. Okay, so that is very, very basic overview. There's lots of other things that the slicer does up here as well, but the main point of the slicer is to take a file that you have downloaded from the internet and make it into a file that your printer can read and work with. So I am going to load in a project. So open project. And I'm going to find one here. I have a lot of projects. Let's try this one. And there we go. Now it may come up with something like this. Is switched now because these will be set up to use a certain printer. This one says that I see, this is what I was talking about, that this particular printer I use will work with my older printers as well, my Crealities. I'm just going to tell it to switch. And it's back to my X1 Carbon. Now I've got a bunch of these on my build plate, and I can move them around. I can delete some. Yeah, I can do a certain amount of editing in this slicer. So once I'm happy with where I've got things, I mentioned I can change the color. You notice here it's come up with generic PLA, but this X1 Carbon does have a AMS to it. So I'm just going to overwrite this, go sync now, And there we go. Now it changed my color, but if I want to change one of these little guys, I can highlight them. I can go to Objects, and I can change his color to, let's see what's in here. I'll change him to yellow. And there we go. That's the one who's changing the yellow. This one I'll change to, let's say, this color. And this one I'll just change to red. Okay. Once I'm done playing around with all of this, oh, by the way, this is if you have an AMS, because you're swapping out colors, you may get one of these, which is called an extrusion. Words fail me. Let me go in and see what that's called. That's called the prime tower. Yeah. The prime tower is just something to keep colors from bleeding through. If I'd made this guy white, and then I want to make, say, part of him black, the black might show through the layer of white. So this goes over and takes off a little of that color before it goes into this, so it doesn't do that. It's up to you whether you need those. I don't often use those because it takes more time for your print, and I don't usually have a bleed problem, but the option is there, and you can read more about it if you do a search on the internet. Okay, so as I've said, I've got these all the way I want them now, so now I have to process them. So I go into Preview, and what this is doing right now, and you can see down here, it's slicing them. And it's generating something called G-code. And G-code is what the printer reads. Now, this little box pops up and it gives me statistics about everything. I'm not going to get into that now. Now, what do? Well, I need to send it to my printer. So I go up here, pull this down, and go Send. And then I have a choice. Because I have more than one printer, of course, I only have one printer turned on right now, and it's my Bamboo #1. I can send this wirelessly to my printer. I can also put it on an SDM memory card, which I can plug into the printer, so I can just pick it up from the computer and copy it to that card, and then put the card into the printer, and away we go. But why, when you can do it wirelessly? And the advantage of this too is that there is a program, an app called Bamboo Handy, where you can do all of what I just did right on your cell phone or iPad and send it from wherever you are, whether you're in the house or you're out on the road. Yes, that's really cool. And one thing, just as an aside, that I forgot to mention, if you want to monitor your prints at any time, there is a built-in camera to the Bamboo line where you can basically, if you're in another location, you can plug into that and make sure things are running the way you want them to run on your printer, because you can see it all in real time through the camera. You can also record from that camera to the memory of your printer and make time-lapse videos of what you have printed. And that's a good thing. And in fact, I am going to show you one of those in a moment after I'm finished explaining this. Okay, so let's get back on track here. So all I need to do is hit send, and it'll send it to my printer. I don't want to send this right now, but there it is. Then I go over to the printer, call up this file, and away we go, and it prints. So that's basically what a slicer is all about. But as I said, there are a ton of settings that you can play around with for whatever purposes you may have. There is a learning curve, always a learning curve, but right out of the box, you can get printing pretty fast with whatever slicer your printer suggests for you. And as I said, this particular one is one that I like, and you can use it with other makers' printers. Okay, so next week I will continue this little series about 3D printing and maybe show you up close and personal my printers and explain to you the sort of how they work in terms of the internal workings and things like that, and maybe compare that to my old Crealities as well, so you'll understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about when I talk about the Creality printers and the Bamboo printers. Or I may be talking about filament. Actually, I may talk about filament next week instead, because to start with, because really you can't do any of this printing unless you've got the raw materials, and that's the filament. And there are different kinds of filaments. So yeah, next week we'll probably talk about filaments. Okay, so I decided, because I needed a place to work on my dollhouse, that I needed to clean up my project area. And this is my project area. Okay. It's piled up. It's starting to look like Walter's sewing room. I've got stabilizers on the floor. I have plastic bins with things in them that are projects and stuff like that. I have 2 of those rolly carts with pre-cuts and everything in them. And then, of course, the shelves above, they hold all my AccuQuilt stuff and some other junk. And actually, it's become a catch-all of little dust collecting things on the edges of the shelves. And off to the side, there's a draft table where I pile up all my projects I'm going to work on. And I'm just getting sick of the mess, so I reorganized. And here it looks a little bit neater, a little more organized. And so you can see here, those trolleys are gone. They're in a different place in my room. They're not gone completely. This set of drawers that are down here hold stabilizers, as do the boxes underneath the drafting table. But I used to have this set of drawers under there, and it was full of, well, one, it still has rulers. You know, when you first get into quilting, you buy a lot of rulers. They're in the top drawer still. But stabilizers in the other 2, and more stabilizers here, but they're out of my way in this corner. Look a little neater. I cleaned off a lot of the stuff that was on here, and my idea was, until now that I've decided I'm not going to pursue this, I was going to have this as a work area for my dollhouse. No, that's going to be moved later today out to the Lucey room. Everything goes to the Lucey room. And that table, I'm going to put, current project on or whatever. I want to keep that area as fairly clean, because you always need a little extra spot to spread out on. So that's what that will be. Ideally, I need to go through everything in this room and do a purge. Yeah, and I will eventually. But right now, this is sort of holding me over until I get to that kind of stage, because, when you start to purge and start to clean up, that's eaten into your time for being creative. But after a while, at least for me anyways, I get to the point where I've had enough. I have to clean it up. Yeah. Okay. So we saw that. Yeah, that's all the pictures I've got. So what's next? Well, little section here that I've added to these Monday morning coffee things called This is Interesting. Something that I think you might find interesting, so you know that the whole idea of the dollhouse was because I've been watching this program called The Best in Miniature, where there's a whole bunch of artists that are making miniature things for their dollhouses, and they're very elaborate. That's what got me onto the idea, and I have now come to the conclusion that no, I will never be as good as they are, and I just not really enjoying it. Go back to my first love, quilting. Anyways, this whole miniature world thing and making them is quite the thing. And on YouTube, there is a lot of resources for that if you're thinking about getting into it yourself. So, well, I made a little video here talking about this. So, you know that I've gotten into this miniature making for a dollhouse, and I've been exploring this in more detail on YouTube, and there are tons of videos about everything you ever want to know about making dollhouses, about making things for dollhouses. You can see here they make tiny little bottles, tiny little food, tiny little books, tiny little chairs. Everything is tiny. And this goes beyond 3D printing. A lot of this stuff is made by hand. And I really think you need to be an artist to do this, but I may give myself a chance to do this a little bit and just see what happens. But this is a whole area of a hobby that I'd never really thought of. I mean, when I thought of dollhouses, I thought of dolls, little girls, houses, kind of a thing. But look here, all these little jars of jam. Can you imagine This woman here, she has a very popular channel where she makes furniture and she sells it. And she sells it to companies, or she sells it herself as well. Curtains. That's what got me thinking about all of this, is how do I make curtains? I was thinking the more conventional way, but in small scale with my sewing machine. But here they show you using glue and foam board, which now means I've got to go and explore what's the basic equipment I need to do this kind of thing. This is a whole new avenue for me as a hobby that I have never tried. I'm excited about doing it, and I'm a little afraid to do it as well. I don't know if I'm going to really like this or not, but I mean, if you don't know, if you don't try, you don't know. So luckily, we had the University of YouTube to help us out with this kind of stuff. But I thought this was really interesting, even if you're not going to do a dollhouse or get into miniatures, just to see the craftsmanship and the artistic talent of these people who make these tiny little things. You might want to check it out. Just do a search on YouTube for making miniatures, and you're going to find a whole bunch of really interesting things. And some of those things you might be able to extend to other areas that you do your crafting in. So yeah, endless possibilities, endless inspiration. Okay, so I told you it was going to be long today. Sorry about that. Not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I don't know. But you're probably on your second cup of coffee by now anyways, or whatever you were drinking. Or you've gone to sleep. Some people use my videos for that, I have been told. Okay. Whatever gets you through. But final note, pop-up so day, March 21st, retreat. Retreat. Yes, it's starting to come up. The retreat, the Idiot Quilter Spring Retreat is April the 18th. More information about that coming out in the next couple of weeks. I am going to be making a video about everything you need to know in terms of how you register and what to expect and that kind of thing. So stay tuned for that in another week or two, couple of weeks, probably a couple of weeks when that comes up. And if you don't mind, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button. It does make a difference, I have found. Yeah. And if you're somebody who just stumbled upon me, well, welcome. But please subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it does a lot for my channel. And it encourages me to carry on with what I am doing with all of my different weekly YouTube videos that I put up. I put up for a week. Yep. Very prolific on that kind of thing. It's surprising I have any time to do anything else. Yeah. I'm amazing, even if I say so myself. Yeah, and I do. Okay. Anyways, now I'm rambling because my coffee is done. I need to go for my walk. I need to get the rest of my day going here. So I hope you have a great week. Tune into the Idiot Quilter tomorrow. And yeah, we'll see you later. Thanks for joining me this morning. Bye-bye. Hi. I'm just going to interrupt my program for just 1 second to remind you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for future notifications. That's all I ask of you. Show me a little love. Thanks.